Hi, this is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. Today we will talk about the subject of journalism again, but in a slightly different format. I wanted to talk about the fields of opinion journalism. Now, opinion journalism is basically editorials, columns, things like that, where journalists are left to express their own opinions. When I first went into journalism, that is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an opinion journalist. I wanted to talk about what I thought. Then I quickly found out, sort of quickly, that if you are a journalist, if you get a job working for a newspaper, which is basically what most journalists do, or if you're lucky enough getting a job working for a radio or TV station, and I really wanted to work for a radio station even though I knew it paid crap, then you're going to be basically given one of two things: either an hourly newscast, or perhaps a twice-a-day newscast, or a beat. Like, for example, the firehouse beat, or the police station beat, or the crime beat, or whatever. And when I learned that, I said, hell no. I do not want to do that. And so when I realized I was not able to be an opinion journalist, that pretty much turned me off to journalism. I was not interested in being a journalist in the conventional sense. Now, in a way, I was being unrealistic. Not in a way, I was being unrealistic. I should have done some reading on journalism before I decided to go into it, to find out what, in fact, journalists actually do, real journalists, what they actually do when they first get a job. I was offered a whole bunch of jobs. When I finished my ABJ, Bachelor of Arts in Journalism degree from the University of Georgia, none of them were from radio stations. Poor me. All of them were from local newspapers, and they all wanted to give me a beat. That's basically what happens. And it's not even as glorious if you're old enough like me to remember The Adventures of Superman, right? Starring George Reeves as Clark Kent, and Phyllis Coates, and later Noel Neill, who I actually met, also starring as Lois Lane. Then you remember that they had beats, sort of. Well, pretty much their beat was whatever they wanted to do. If you're a journalist today, you're not going to be that lucky. You're going to have the same beat day in and day out without any chance of change, unless you get a promotion, which usually takes a while, and pretty much you have to wait for somebody to quit or to die before that happens. And the salary, as I've said before, is also not that great. So I couldn't do what I wanted to do, working for a radio station or, heaven forbid, a newspaper. So podcasting, to me, became the next best alternative, because I can basically say whatever the hell I want and nobody can say no. The only thing that can happen is that people can refuse to listen to me or watch me. And you all seem to be doing a pretty good job at that so far, I must say. But I wanted to express my thoughts on opinion journalism in relationship to Marxism-Third Worldism or Maoism-Third Worldism, because I think that is an important thing to focus on. First of all, let's eliminate a misconception. Journalism is not about being neutral. There is no such thing as neutral journalism. It's been studied. It's not hard to find out. You simply do an analysis of stories. You look at the number of times various words are used, or even say in a newspaper article, whatever that particular journalist chooses to put at the top of the story, and you know what biases that journalist has. That's why we can say with almost infallible accuracy that Fox News Channel is conservative, that MSNBC is sort of liberal, that CNN kind of straddles the line. For a while it was liberal, for a while it was conservative, and I honestly don't know what it is right now. But if you are practicing journalism, pretty much if you say you're going to be neutral, you go into that interview room and they say, "What do you want to do as a journalist?" And you say, "I want to be neutral." That's probably going to be the last time you will ever be in that radio or TV or newspaper building. There is no such thing as a neutral journalist. All journalists come in with their own biases, their own prejudices, their own misconceptions or conceptions. What you can be, however, is you can be, to borrow the distorted Fox News Channel slogan, which I think eventually Fox abandoned. I never watch Fox News Channel, so I have no idea if they abandoned it. That's what somebody told me. Fair and balanced. Of course, Fox News Channel was never fair and balanced. But any good journalist should strive to be fair and balanced. That means you consider the various viewpoints, you try to find out different perspectives, you report on them, you try to give at least some time to each of those different views, because if you don't do that, then you're going to appear to be one-sided and people are simply not going to take you seriously. In other words, you're going to be a lousy journalist. A lousy opinion journalist, or just a lousy journalist in general. Now, with opinion journalism, you can get away with a bit more bias. In fact, you're almost expected to get away with a bit more bias. That does not mean, however, that you have an excuse to not be fair and balanced, to some degree or another. Meaning that you should still try to represent what people who disagree with you say. For example, I used to judge debates, high school debates. All the professors at the college where I taught at that time, all of us, were all called upon to do that job of judging debates in local high schools. And so we would rotate. I kind of liked it. Some people didn't. But I thought it was kind of an enjoyable distraction. If you are doing a debate, if you want to win a debate that you are engaged in, well, whether it's in high school or any place else, then you really need to know the perspective of the other side at least as well as they do, preferably better than they do, so that you will actually come across as being well informed. What will that do? That will impress the audience. The audience is more likely to trust you. Plus, for example, if you are engaged in a high school debate and somebody asks you a question and you simply don't know the answer to that question, say that question deals with the side that you are debating against, you simply lose points. Formal debates are generally based on a point system. The last thing you want to do in a formal debate is to lose points. You want to gain points. So debating is a good illustration of opinion journalism. You really need to be an expert on all sides of the issue. Forget the both sides concept. There is no such thing as both sides. There are always many sides. Many sides. And the more sides you know about, the better a debater you will be. So even if the person that you are debating against only knows her or his own side, and perhaps your side, if you know about all the other sides, all the other perspectives, or at least a lot of them, that are used by other people, then you have a better chance of winning that debate. Okay, let's move from that back into opinion journalism. The same basic principles apply. When you are writing a story, say you are writing a story on Marxism-Third Worldism or Maoism-Third Worldism, you really need to know about the views of the people that you regard as being the opponent. So, for instance, as a Marxist, I need to know not only about Marxism, I need to know about anarchism, I need to know about progressivism, I need to know about the various conservatisms, I can spit that out. There are many liberalisms or progressivisms. There are many conservatisms, many different ones, not just one. For instance, with conservatism, there's neoconservatism, there's paleoconservatism, there's social conservatism, there's cultural conservatism, and so on, and so on, and so on. With progressivism, well, there's standard, generic progressivism, such as one might see on MSNBC, which is kind of a Manila, whatever the word is. I can't think of it, but it's basically a generic type of liberalism. Not that sophisticated, meant for the average viewer, not that intense. You really don't need to pay that much attention to the anchor or the commentator. You'll still get a pretty good idea of what's being said. Then there's also social democracy, sometimes called progressivism, although that's somewhat confusing too, as I'll point out in a second. Social democrats, or progressives, at least some progressives, are interested in reforming capitalism, right? Not creating communism, but putting a smiley face on, like a smiley emoji or emoticon on capitalism, making capitalism look really, really sweet. However ugly it is, social democracy or progressivism tries to make it look a lot better than it is. It's really full of crap. You don't want it. Take my word for it. You don't want it. Now, after that, there is also democratic socialism. Here's where there's even more confusion. There are many different democratic socialisms. Some democratic socialists also call themselves progressives. Even whether they are or aren't isn't for me to say, but they call themselves progressives. Democratic socialists can run the gamut, from those who believe in reform to those who believe in revolution. Yeah, there are actually democratic socialists who believe in revolution, but it's not exactly revolution in precisely the same way that most communists, no matter which tendency or current they subscribe to, would be presenting. So, again, when you are talking about a subject as nuanced, and as unusual and perhaps as unfamiliar to the listener as Marxism-Third Worldism or Maoism-Third Worldism, it's important to be aware of a variety of different perspectives. That way you can address them systematically, one by one, not necessarily in the same podcast, but in different podcasts. That way you show that you are not only that you're a knowledgeable person, which of course we all need to be. A stupid podcaster is a contradiction in terms. If you're stupid, don't become a podcaster. Okay. But more seriously, if you become a podcaster, it really is important that you have a vast amount of knowledge of different perspectives that people may have. That way, for example, I don't know, say there is a comments section connected with your podcast. Say you have a blog or whatever, some sort of forum where you can engage with your viewers or listeners regarding your podcast, which not all podcasters do. Some podcasters choose to remain relatively remote. Don't remain remote. Well, that's just my opinion. Try to engage with your listeners or viewers. Present yourself as somebody who is approachable, as somebody who is knowledgeable. Now, if somebody asks you a question and you look it up quickly, like Wikipedia, don't use Wikipedia. Never use Wikipedia. Never, 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 never use Wikipedia. It has no peer review process, and it has loads and loads and loads and loads of mistakes. The only thing you might use Wikipedia for are the references. Maybe. Sometimes. But the problem is that I find when I go to Wikipedia and look up the references, a large number of those references are simply expired. You click on them and you get 404 pages, meaning it's not there anymore. Now, if you want, if you have time, you can do a Google or Bing search and most likely find the article that the person was referencing. But that's just a waste of time. Better to do your own research. Find out from reliable sources what your opponents think, so that when you confront your opponents online, and inevitably you will, because there are a lot of people in the world, especially here in the capital of fascism in the world, the United States, there are definitely a lot of people who hate communism. If you meet somebody who thinks that Joe Biden is a communist, don't pay attention to them. Well, not really. You can answer their questions, but realize that person has no idea of what she or he is talking about. Notice what I just did. I put she before he. Okay, you can do that if you like. I do it as a simple courtesy to kind of invert the standard way of doing it, which is he and she. So I say she and he. You don't have to do that if you don't want. In fact, don't do it. Because if you do it, I will just know immediately that you're impersonating me. No, I'm lying about that. You can do it if you want. But again, if you want to be a good representative, a good exponent of Marxism or Maoism Third Worldism, know the different positions that go against it. Of course you would want to do that. Why wouldn't you? Or else you'll come across as an idiot. And what podcaster wants to be seen as an idiot? Because people won't watch you. Well, maybe they will. Maybe idiots will watch you. But you don't want idiots to watch you. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't mind idiots watching me. But if they watch me, I want them to be open to the possibility that they might be able to overcome their idiocy and become intelligent human beings. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. The importance of being fair and balanced. That is important. The importance of not being neutral. There is no such thing as neutrality. Everyone has an opinion. If somebody says be neutral on climate change, they're fools. If someone says be neutral on whether the earth is spherical or flat, they're being fools. So in other words, neutrality is inappropriate in any kind of journalism, including opinion journalism. What is important is to be fair and balanced. And a fair and balanced response to the idea that, for example, there is no such thing as climate change is those people who don't believe in climate change are fools. Yes, that is an appropriate response. Except don't say it that way. Find a nice, pleasant, inoffensive way of expressing that same basic idea. Okay, that's it for today, and I'm sure you're happy about that. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. Have a pleasant evening or a pleasant day.